Now before we attach the outer rail or the solid rail to our surfboard, we need to trim off the overhanging material of the bottom deck so that it is flush with our frame rails. Now the best tool that we have found for that is definitely one of these. This is a trim router, or sometimes called a laminate trimmer or palm router. But this is just a small handheld routing tool which uses a bearing guided bit that rides along the rail but trims any of the overhanging material to be flush with the rail. Now these routers are invaluable, and if you haven't got one, I strongly suggest you grab one, but you could of course achieve the similar result as this using hand tools such as a saw and a block plane to flush things up. Now to start, you're going to have to set the depth of cut on your router bit so that the bearing will ride along the rail of your frame, but you don't want it to be too far above, because remember that it does thin out at the nose and tails, so probably only a millimeter or two below the very edge. Now you're going to be working with your board upside down, so if you have some sawhorses or a shaping horse, now is the time to use it, but if you haven't got that, you could also use a beach towel that you've rolled up nice and tight on your workbench just to act as a little bit of cushioning so it doesn't rock around too much. So working with your router firmly on the bottom side of your surfboard, you're going to start removing the deck skin material. Now, depending on how comfortable or how experienced you are with a tool like this, it might be a good idea to take it in small sections so that things don't get away from you. You can come in, remove a 300 to 400 millimeter or 12 to 15 inch section of material, take it out, and then reassess or readjust your body so that you're not putting yourself in any awkward positions. Remember that up at the nose and tail where the rails start to get thin, there is a risk of undercutting if the bearing doesn't ride along the nose block. So make sure that you have ample thickness there, and if you don't, this is a section to come in with a hand tool and fine tune it rather than a power tool. Once all of the overhanging material has been removed with the router, inspect the edge and clean it up anywhere that needs it. You might find a section is not cut perfectly flush. To fix that, a little block plane or a sanding block does a really good job of fixing that up. At this point, we are really just interested in having a really good face here that is nice and true, or flat in other words, for our rails to get glued on. So just take your time and clean things up. If you do end up using sandpaper to do this, just be aware that sandpaper can eat away on the edges more than the middle of the material, and you can end up with a cupped or bowed surface. So a sanding block or a block plane is definitely the way to go. So once you've cleaned up your rails, what you should be left with is a nice flat edge that you'll get a good glue contact with the very edge of your bottom skin with the top of your rails. So you just need it to be nice and flat, so we have plenty of strength there when it comes up to gluing the rails on.